your paint box for this month. The project we're going to work on today is this little shell, and I have a guest artist with me, and that is my dear friend Terry, who's also a student. Terry's been painting with me since I've been here in the studio. It's 8 years.
Oh no.
Can't be. So in the introduction of every video, I introduce you to a student, and we never can believe how long we've all been painting together. I'm also going to have a student maybe next video who just started painting with me. So we'll have a little bit of everything, but Terry definitely was even a sorority sister, so we go way back. We're not going to say how long ago that was, but we're not going to say how many years.
We won't. Just a few.
But I did choose Terry to come in and work on this month's projects because we've got the little girl on the beach was the 8x10 this month, and then we've got the shell because Terry's lucky enough to have a wonderful little vacation spot in Sanibel, Florida. And she always has pretty jewelry on with little shells. Do you have your shell necklace on today?
I do.
Okay.
Well, it's my
palm tree. Her palm tree necklace. So she definitely loves the beach, and she'll send us some pretty texts when she's down there at the beach, and the birds in Sanibel on the beach, and
all the shells.
And all the shells. So we're going to get started, and we'll meet you back here at step 1. Okay, Terry, so this is going to be a little different for you because we are working in water-based oils, so we don't need any turpentine. We're going to thin with water, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush into that water and see if we can't loosen it up a little bit. I'm not going to have a lot of water left on it, but just a little because I want to thin out the first color that we're going to use, which is this yellow ochre. I'm just going to thin it out a little bit so we can draw with it. And then I'm going to just make a little dot at center on all 4 sides of my canvas. And that will just kind of help me draw so I can see that the center of the shell, the top of the shell, the center is right about 1/4 of an inch down below from that dot there at the center from the top. And the widest part of the shell is about 1/4 of an inch over here from the center. And I'm just marking the parameters of the shell. So it looks like I centered that shell when I painted it, about 1/4 of an inch from each side. And I'm going to draw a line at the bottom where the shell, the little scallop shell bottom is. And then I'm going to come up at about a 45-degree angle towards that dot over here. And then at about a 45-degree angle towards this right side. And then from those 2 points, I'm just going to kind of just make a half circle up and around as the top of the shell. And the scallop shell has like 2 little things here where the shell hinges together, almost like 2 little triangles. And then I think to make instead of drawing a bunch of lines for the lines on the shell, I'm going to have you just use the flat side of your brush, and let's bring 1 wide line down the center, and then maybe 2 on each side, and that can give us a guideline for where all those little ridges are going to go. So believe it or not, that's pretty much the guideline we need for our drawing, and that's really the end of step 1. That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you back here at step 2. Shell is, I'm going to make 2 colors for the background. It kind of looks like it's laying in the sand, right? Kind of a off-white kind of beachy color.
Yes, it does.
So I'm going to pick up with the end of my knife. Now these knives are like a little spatula, so just the end of it's kind of bouncy here. I'm just going to use the end of it, and I'm going to pick up a little white And then I'm gonna just, with the tip of this palette knife, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that yellow ochre and just mix that into the white, and you get a really nice light yellow. And actually, mine's not very light, so I need to put in a lot more white. Or, like Terry knows what I say in class, if I have something that's gone wrong, like this is too dark for what I want, instead of trying to correct an entire pile that's wrong, I usually cut it in half, move half of it away, and then try to fix only half of as big a pile. And so there we have kind of just a nice white, off-white creamy color. And I'm gonna reach over here and get some more white. And I do have another tube of white here, Terry, but we can keep refilling if we need to.
Thank you.
We have to refill the white pretty often. And then the next shade I want to be even lighter. So let's pick up your white and just barely a little tiny touch of that yellow ochre. This is truly going to be just an off-white, this other shade, which I barely put anything in there and it still looks like it has too much color. So there we go. This is just barely off-white. Those are my two shades. So what we're going to do now is take our brush, and if this is your first lesson, I usually remind everybody that you want to hold your brush back. Instead of holding it right here where it's like a pencil, we want to use it like a brush and use kind of sweeping motions with our brush strokes. Kind of from your shoulder, you know, the whole arm becomes part of the brush. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that first color on the end of the brush. I'm going to sweep like I'm sweeping with a broom and pick it up. And then I'm going to just lay it down in little crisscross strokes around that shell. And we'll add the ruffly edges of that shell, the scallops. You know, the scallop shell has little scalloped edges all the way along. I wonder. So we'll cover that canvas with just these little crisscross kind of strokes. You should feel that paint sliding underneath your brush. You know what, I might even just dip right into my white and just drag some little, you know, you want the sand to look like it has a little texture. So you can do that by varying the color a little bit. So I put a couple little just fresh white.
Are we using both colors?
Use both colors, and then I'm also using just pure white, and I'm going to put the pure white right on top of some of that yellow. And it gives it kind of a nice sand texture. And you'll see sometimes, maybe some more so in backgrounds, that I do this little crisscross stroke. And I do have a dog here with me today, so I think we heard some snoring when the video started, and you'll hear some more of that with Sienna today sleeping under the sofa. And I don't think I've put Sienna in a video yet, so we're gonna have to show you a picture of Sienna. The groomer, Sienna's a little Shih Tzu, and the groomer put little bows in her hair this time. And she looks pretty cute in them. And so she's pretty much the studio dog now that my older dog Tucker's no longer with us. Sienna's taken over the job as hanging out with everybody here at the studio. And Sienna's getting old herself. She's about 10 now. Can't believe that. So I'm just going up to the edge of that shell, and like I said, I'm going to worry about making the little scalloped ruffly edges in the next step. But like I said, sprinkle some little white dots in there. I think it kind of gives a little texture to that shell, or to the sand, I mean. And I think that's it for step 2 for the background, and I paint kind of fast, so if you all haven't caught up with me, then just pause the video and I'll meet you back here at step 3. Okay, we're back for step 3. That is going to be painting the shell. And I'm going to say, let's make 3 colors. So there is a light melon, very like a cantaloupe melon color. We're going to make that. Then we're going to make this medium peachy, kind of a dull pinky peach. And then we're going to make a kind of brownish orange for the darker color. So a light, a medium, and a dark. For the light color, I'm going to take my palette knife, pick up some white, and I have a little bit of this yellow color left over from the background, and that would be just either a little speck of that, a tiny speck of that yellow ochre, or a little bit of this background color if you have it left over. And then we're going to reach over here to this color called vermilion, which is a really bright, bright red. And I'm going to get the tiniest little speck of that on my knife. And that's going to turn it into that light kind of cantaloupe melon color. I need to make a little more of that, so I'm going to go over it again here. We're going to pick up white, the leftover yellow from the background, and a little tiny speck of that red. And you'll see that that red goes a long way. Terry, do you see shells like this down in Sanibel? Scallop
I
shells?
see a lot of scallop shells, yes.
Are they very big? Or are they all about the same size?
All different sizes
Really?
and colors, yes.
Ooh.
Not too big, maybe between 1/2 inch and 2 inches.
Oh, okay, not bigger than that. That's interesting. Because Sanibel is known for its shells. Lots and lots of shells for some reason, washing around that area of Florida. All right, I'm going to make the medium color. I'm going to pick up some white again, and I'm going to go with just a speck of red. And let's just see what the white and the red look like. It's just a little more red. I think I got too much. The red is so strong, you don't need much.
I just found that out, yes.
You really, a lot of color mixing is trial and error. You kind of have to learn by, like anything else, by practicing and trial and say, oh, I put a little too much in. Like I said, if you have a pile where you've put too much of something in, I usually cut it in half, move half of it away, and then try to fix a smaller pile rather than trying to fix a great big pile. I think that's pretty. I think I'm gonna put a little more white in that. So this middle pile was just white with a little bit of that bright vermilion red, and that makes a really pretty coral. And now the third shade, I'm just gonna pick up a little less white. All I have left is a little speck here. A speck of white, a little bit of our red, and then we're gonna come over here to this burnt sienna, that reddish brown. And we'll make a nice deep shade here. You know, I might even add, I think if I add a little bit of this burnt umber brown, it might tone that down a little bit. That's just the chocolate brown, just a little tiny bit on the tip of your knife, and yeah, that made a nice deep coral color. Do you see them in this corally kind of color?
I do.
Oh,
yes. A lot of corals.
I'll probably have to go home and look through all my shell collection and see if I have some. And I should post a picture of some of my shell collections. Do you have like shell collections?
I have a lot of shell collections. A lot of shells.
I noticed that you have some shells sewn onto the top of your blouse today. Those are pretty. So I've got 3 shades here. I'm going to start with the lightest shade, and I'm just going to sweep with my brush and pick it up and just start kind of come a little bit randomly with these, just kind of start making some stripes. I'm going to alternate the 2 lighter colors and save that darker color to be like a shadow color. It's in those little ridges. So I'm just using the flat side of my brush, and sometimes, like I'll show you for example, down where it gets thinner, I'll turn the brush sideways and just kind of draw with the edge of it. And we'll just kind of keep. This is the stage where we can start adding a little bit of those ruffly scallops into the top of the shell. Well, I'll probably insert a picture of a couple of my shell collections. I have a big basket on my front porch that has lots and lots of big shells. And I had a big concrete garden statue in the back, and it was a little cherub holding a bowl, and in the bowl I put lots of little shells until we got our puppy. And then the puppy went back there and pulled all the shells out and chews on them and plays with them, and I find them all over the yard. So I had to find a new place to display those shells. But like I said, here in Kentucky, we're not close to the ocean at all. So we have to drive quite a ways or fly quite a ways to get to the beach. And that's what most people do here. They head to Florida or the Carolinas. Sometimes Lake Michigan. So I'm still alternating the light and the medium. I'm getting ready to start adding some of the dark in there. And I'm kind of making little rounded scallop edges at the end here. Terry, are you? Yeah, you are. Doing good. All right, let's start putting that darker color in. I think that's where we're gonna start seeing a difference here. So I think that the sun's coming from our right side. So the right side of the shell is lighter and the left side's a little darker. So I'm gonna start dragging the darker color on that left side first. Making it a little darker. And I'm hoping that everybody's gonna post these on Facebook so I can take a look and see if you all are enjoying your projects. And then I'm going to very lightly put maybe a little bit of the dark on this side so that we can see where those ridges are down between those scalloped areas. And I'm going to take that medium color and kind of just I'm actually going to kind of swirl my brush just a little to make those little scallop shapes on the top, all the way along the edge. So Terry's lucky enough to go down to Sanibel. You go down quite a few times a year, don't you?
About 4 times a year.
Well, it seems like more, but the time flies so fast, doesn't it?
It does. I have jars and jars of shells.
I bet you do.
The last time there was a big storm, so after the storm comes, there's always a lot of
It roughs up the water.
interesting shells, yes.
Now, I visited Sanibel about 5 years ago, and we took a boat out past Captiva Island to a deserted island. Well, I think there's a little restaurant out there. And 80%, 90% of the island is just sand and driftwood and shells. What's the name of that little place? I'm gonna have to look that up, and I'll put a picture of it in for you all. I'll put a picture of us there picking up the shells. Okay, believe it or not, that might be all I do for this step. And then in the final step, we're gonna add these little triangle hinges on the bottom of the shell, and then some of these little purple and yellow highlights, purple shadows and yellow highlights, and we'll do that in the next step. So catch up with us, and we'll meet you back here in a few minutes. Here we are already at the last step for our scallop shell. The first thing I'm going to do is make up this pretty purple color. It kind of gives a nice cool shadow color against all that warm orange and peach. So we're gonna make purple by picking up a little tiny speck of this dark navy blue, the ultramarine. Just a little speck of that. A little speck of this alizarin, is what's called purple red. It's called alizarin crimson, and on your tube, I believe this brand, Marie's Paint, marks it as purple red. And we need some more white. I always forget during the break. When Leelle is here, she takes care of us and fills everything up during break. I forgot. So I'm gonna get some white and stir up that purple there. It's pretty dark, so I'm gonna do my usual, take half of it and put it away, so I don't have to use quite as much white. And that's that pretty purple color that's gonna go in these shadows. I'm gonna add a little bit of burnt umber to that purple, just to gray it out so it doesn't look too sherbety. Just a little bit of burnt umber sometimes grays the color out to a nice, a little bit duller version of the color. And there isn't much of that purple, but I'm gonna pick up really with just the chisel end of my brush instead of taking up a big pile with the side of the brush like we usually do, because I'm really just gonna kind of tap in and kind of maybe sort of draw with, like I said, with that chisel end of the brush. Sometimes we do more of a drawing stroke than painting. The purple and the orange look pretty together. And I'm just kind of randomly putting this purple in, not too much of it, just some shadows. And a little bit on these little, I keep calling it the hinge, because you know when those shells, sometimes you find the shells on the beach and they're still hinged together.
Yes.
You can kind of open them up like a little clam shell. Make sure nothing's still inside of it. Every once in a while you find something living inside of it. And then you scream and throw the beach. Throw it back on the beach. And sometimes you bring them back into your condo and lay them on a glass table and see these little snail things kind of crawling out later on. And then you feel bad that you've taken them from their home on the beach. But most of the time we just find them when they're already empty. So for this the darkest shadow color, I'm going to reach right over here into this burnt sienna. Once again with the chisel end of my brush, just tapping. And I'm just going to pull that color up. I'm going to go a little more dramatic. I'm going to really kind of draw a big line on that. And that's making a really big difference on the drama of the shell. As I say to you in most lessons, that what we're painting really is the result of light, of sunlight, or if it's an interior scene, it's, artificial light. But light and shadows is what gives us all of our shape and depth. So I'm going a little dramatic on those shadows. And I'm going to tap some of that dark color into those little pieces at the bottom. And then the other thing, I'm always telling everybody, make those darks darker. And also don't forget to check for some highlights. So I'm going to take that chisel under the brush and just tap into that pure white. And I'm going to very gently tap some pure white on the lighter side, this right side of the shell. It's getting some really pretty higher highlights. And I won't add too many of those. Too many highlights gets too much drama. That's pretty. And then I'm just going to take a look and see what else I want to do to finish this up. I think that my the scallop on the light side of the shell is kind of hard to see, so I'm going to take some of my purple and just kind of put a little purple along there, kind of outlining those little scallop shapes a little bit. And I might do the opposite on the dark side. I might take some of this dark color and just kind of outline the scallops. There's a lot of commotion around here, Terry, today, isn't there?
There is.
And I think I'm getting kind of close to being done. I want to make sure I have this really pretty little rounded edge on the bottom of the shell. Right over here, like I don't think I have it rounded enough, so I'm going to come down like that. And you know what I was just thinking? I bet this is the first time I've ever painted a shell. No, I take that back. See that painting up there from Mexico?
I love that one.
Yeah, I'll have to put that in the video. I've got a big vase on the beach in Mexico at a place where we rented on the beach, and there's a big conch shell there. So no, this is not my first shell. That just occurred to me when I said that. I thought about a conch shell for this project, but that'd be kind of hard. I think it'd be harder than the scallop shape.
It is, yes. I painted a conch shell once.
Did you paint it in here?
I did.
Oh, I don't remember that. Oh, I do remember it. You did it recently. You did it during COVID.
I did.
Yeah.
Saw the big
Oh, it was
shell that I
really
found.
pretty colors. Yes, you found it and did the photography, but the colors were all really, really, really pastel, right?
Yes.
Well, I'll have to put a picture of that in the video. I kind of think I'm done, Terry. We'll pause the video and we can, Terry and I'll meet you back here in the foyer to talk about our paintings. We'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're back here. Terry had her first little paint box project and she did really well. I knew she would.
It's a little nervous,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of fun.
Everybody's so nervous. I have no idea why. Because these are easy projects for you all, and hopefully for you all at home too, because I'm trying to keep them very step-by-step, basic and easy. And well, we're gonna do our big reveal here. My shell and Terry's shell. And I think she did a great job. We started talking, she's got the shells on her blouse there, and of course she has all kinds of jewelry from the beach. But we started talking about shells, and we both remembered a video, and I don't know if you all have ever heard of it or seen it, but now there's a little book that goes along with it. It's called Marcel the Shell, and it's really funny. I'm probably going to have to ask them for some kind of copyright
I
for
love
me to be able
Marcel.
to talk about Marcel the Shell. But you can look at it on YouTube, and his real name is Marcel the Shell with shoes on. So it's kind of, if you like quirky humor, you can check out Marcel the Shell. But anyway, Terry, I'm glad you joined us. It was fun and easy, and I love how the shell goes with the little girl on the beach who's out combing for shells. And that's where Terry's probably off to soon, to the beach to look for shells. Yeah. And we will see you all next month. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.